recording. And I am also watching the waiting room because we use that here at Gardner-Webb. But let me begin by bringing you greetings from Gardner-Webb University. It's a beautiful sunny day here on the campus of Boiling Springs, as it appears to be in other parts of the state too. I want to thank you very much for participating in this with us. The strength of our program relies heavily on those of you who are willing to serve as called. And I particularly, Dr. Gillespie, Dr. Waller, I particularly want to thank you for taking your time and giving us of this service. I know Hope speaks very highly of you. When we were talking about the formation of her committee, she had nothing but great things to say about you. And I'm sure she'll want to say some great things a little bit later on. But from Gardner-Webb, we really do appreciate your taking time to do this. This has been a journey for Hope. She's worked very, very hard. I know it's been a difficult journey at times because there's a thing called the COVID going on. There's a thing called, I believe, a new transition in jobs. So Hope is here and has done a great job to get here. So with that said, again, thank you from Gardner-Webb University. The format for this, we will let Hope do her presentation, and then we will break into a breakout room, the three of us, and then we'll discuss if that's how we feel about it, if there's anything we want to add, if there's how we are with whether or not we feel like Hope is ready to move on to the IRB process and the research. So that's kind of our mission today. And that said, Hope, it is all yours, and you can start sharing your screen, and we will turn it over to you.
I'm sorry, I don't know why it's not presenting correctly. Okay. Okay. I believe, can you all see? You all are in my right-hand corner. So if I look like I am looking at you all now, can you see my screen? Yes, my presentation. Okay, perfect. I want to also welcome Dr. Waller, Dr. Gillespie, Dr. Stone. Thank you for participating on my committee as I go through this journey of writing my dissertation. I especially want to thank Dr. Waller from Lee County Schools. Thank you for being an intricate part of my dissertation committee and assisting me with continuing my study in the district. Dr. Gillespie from Fayetteville State University, thank you so much for serving on my committee and being able to assist me with analyzing my data. And Dr. Stone, I can't say thank you enough as my dissertation chair and helping me through the whole process and keeping me focused. Again, thank you everyone that's here today for giving of your time to come and listen to my dissertation proposal. Committee members, please feel free to ask questions and comments as I am going through my presentation. And we are going to get started. So the title of my dissertation is The Impact of Leadership on School Culture in a Small Rural School District as Measured by Stakeholder Satisfaction. The problem presented for my dissertation is that the influence of school leaders have on culture is often overlooked. Leaders need to understand their role in creating and sustaining a positive school culture to benefit student achievement is based on the interactions between the staff, the students, and the community. Reason why this problem must be addressed by school leaders is because it is proven that school culture is a central influence on the success of student achievement and staff motivation. Research also suggests that there are key points for building a school culture, and it follows a process as when the administrator or the school leader enters into a building as the new school leader of that school. First, you should enter carefully by listening and learning those who have been there, engaging in fact-finding and joint collaborative problem solving. Remember that as the school leader, you do not have all the answers. Being forthcoming when you are addressing people's concerns, whether it's staff, whether it's students, or whether it's the community, specifically parents. Be enthusiastic, genuine, and sincere about this change in school leadership. Create an atmosphere where you're obtaining buy-in and develop a credible plan for assisting in this change. This will demonstrate a willingness to collaborate to deepen the effectiveness of the school culture. However, again, our problem, too often leaders do not follow these key points, leading to the lack of a positive school culture, which contributes to the problem of my study. So let's dive into the research a little bit. What research says to support that this problem needs to be investigated or studied and addressed states that there's a preliminary step to shaping school culture. For leaders to become familiar with the concept of what school culture really is and what it means for the school leader. In other words, school leaders must be familiar with the quality and character of the school. When school leaders can create a strong culture, they can demonstrate leadership behaviors to establish positive relationships with all stakeholders. Specific features of school leaders that can have an impact on school culture are those that motivate individuals to help reach a common goal. Those who prepare others to change by interacting with them, motivate staff by creating a synergy that exceeds the usual practices and authorities, not just managerial, and affect the direct behaviors, beliefs, and attitudes of others. Additionally, Carpenter, very known throughout studying school culture and the influences that affect school culture. His investigation, his purpose was to explore supportive and shape leadership structures at schools as it relates to school culture. He proved that it takes multiple minds to work together to serve the students and create school culture. Again, being collaborative. He proposed that effective school culture is one that includes a shaped purpose and values collaborative engagement and problem solving and collective inquiry as a focus on continuous improvement. Learning how to establish a connection and becoming closer, both emotionally and academically, with students has a successful impact on student culture that leads to student performance. Researchers added to the studies of culture and its effect on an organization that leaders have to deal with beliefs that are part of their own culture background, which transfers into how they lead the culture of their own school. Culture is learned from the school leader, meaning that positive school culture creates a cohesive environment between students and staff. This becomes the quality and the character of the school. The direct study of student success is applicable to measure whether a school has a strong positive school culture or a negative school culture. Leadership that produces collaborative environment has a clear sense of duty and purpose that when developing positive relationships, it can transform the school with different levels of positive results. This also has a positive impact on teacher efficacy and is the initial driver in school improvement. Any prominent school leadership style directly impacts school culture. The opportunity to improve school culture lies within direct effect of the school leadership. School leadership that centers on the leader's ability to promote values, share beliefs, affecting the behaviors of all stakeholders would specifically speaking of teachers. Research says that schools that allow teachers to have more control over key school-wide and classroom decisions, they tend to have fewer issues with student misbehavior. They show more collegiality, and there is more cooperation among teachers and administrators. This leads to teacher retention and more engaged teaching, ultimately affecting all stakeholders and having a positive effect again on student achievement. As I mentioned, the influence of the school leader have on school culture is often overlooked. Therefore, the purpose of my study is to determine the impact of school leadership on school culture in the research district. This study will add to research on the impact of leadership on school culture that supports that the research positive school culture can increase staff morale and retention, student achievement, and stakeholder satisfaction. As a result, giving reason for students to perform well gives the potential to mentally complement the teaching level of both school teachers and administrators. When students perform well, it tends to change the degree of enjoyment in the students while being in the school system, again, promoting student performance. This study comes at a time when education has faced some unprecedented challenges via COVID. Therefore, examining this relationship between school leadership and school culture will add to the body of knowledge for establishing a positive culture as we re-enter into schools. This study will add to the education and training of school leaders that can be coupled with their experience to improve school culture. The research field will be enhanced with this study because as many continue to train and teach other educators to become more effective, evidence will be available to further support effective leadership that impacts school culture. This study seeks to measure the impact leadership has on the school culture. School culture will be examined through the lens of professional collaboration, affiliative collegiality, and self-determination or efficacy. Will be evaluated to measure the impact of school culture based on the beliefs of teachers and staff. Additionally, this study will provide revelation for how school culture can impact student academics, student discipline, and student attendance. The theoretical framework was created to support the theory of this research study. The current literature on school culture, school leadership styles, and public perception was used to create the theoretical framework. For all stakeholders, the current belief in the success of schools require effective school culture, which includes the collaboration of all stakeholders. In this study, leadership is based on three prominent leadership styles: transformational, transactional, and laissez-faire. We will dive into these a little later. When school leadership is true to have a direct impact on school culture. Culture can take on the style of the leader, so it is important for a leader to adopt a style that will lead to a positive school culture, an environment that is cohesive between the students and the staff. Based on seeing the results of my theoretical framework, this study will examine how well collaboration is taking place within a school setting. It will measure teaching and learning and determine whether or not the school is achieving its goals. The effectiveness of teaching and learning can be studied by measuring student success. Based on the theoretical framework, this study will show which type of leadership has more of an effect on school culture. Additionally, it will indicate where emphasis needs to be placed in order to improve the culture of a school, which impacts, again, the student academics, discipline, and attendance. The opportunity here is to improve school culture will be supported or refuted by the direct impact of the school leadership based on the prominent leadership style. Leadership is defined as the process where one individual influences others towards the attainment of organizational goals. Leadership is the influence and support that individuals bring to bear on the goal of achievement of others in an organizational context. It is important for the leader to be cognizant of their own principles and values because this is what affects the school. Leaders that are cognizant of their own personal viewpoint is key to accomplishing success. Therefore, a school leader is responsible for ensuring that the principles and values are correctly applied because students in the classroom are impacted, and teachers and their self-assurance are impacted, and parents must know that their children are learning and growing at the school organization. When the leader understands the impact of his or her dreams and visions, this is what brings positivity to the school culture and spreads to various stakeholders in the school and the community. In the article, How to Define School Culture and Elevate Your Teaching, Kimberly Mitchell describes culture simply. She wrote, culture is an embodiment of a community's shared driving purpose. In schools, this purpose is ideally driven by the unique needs of students, families, and staff. To create and define positive school culture, administrators and teachers must start by identifying these needs, recognizing community assets, and making sure every decision reflects them. Whether it is clearly defined, intentionally created, or not, culture is present at every school. Culture is about implicit and explicit agreements and defines the way that a school works together. Culture is manifest in how people enter the building, what they say, who they sit with at lunch, who speaks and how much they speak inside of a classroom. It impacts the experience of everyone, staff, students, families, and the community. School culture is the beliefs and values embodied in the building and the school personnel. School culture can be thought of as the glue that holds a school together. At its core, school culture is the quality and character of the school. It is based on patterns of school experiences for those who work and learn there. Schools with a strong positive culture tends to motivate students to learn. As a result, school culture directly impacts the academics of a school. Effective leadership. Effective leadership can be developed through positive relationships with the members of the school and even transform the school as a sustainable structure in the learning organization. Leadership more directly implies a specific leadership style that describes the connection and relationship built within the school to create culture. This study will examine 3 leadership styles: transformational, transactional, and laissez-faire, as each directly impacts school culture. Transformational leadership are leaders who exhibit transformational behaviors in their daily interactions through idolized influence, through inspirational motivation, through individualized consideration, and intellectual stimulation. Transformational leadership includes another set of behaviors to encourage others to do more than required. They want to be proactive, to be helpful in attaining unexpected goals, and they have the ability to move others beyond their immediate self-interest. When considering all stakeholders, teachers appreciate transformational leadership as role models who inspire trust in the school. Transformational leaders have been shown to have positive impact on enhancing student achievement. Transactional leadership occurs when leaders motivate others to enact their agreed upon roles in exchange for reward or avoidance of punishment. The focus for transactional leaders is on clarifying responsibility, performance objectives, and their tasks that must be completed through some type of contractual agreement. Transactional leaders have 3 primary characteristics. They work with their team members and try to get a reward for their goal. They will exchange reward and promises for work effort, and they will be responsive to the immediate self-interest of workers. Leaders who exhibit transactional leadership exhibit the following: contingent, reward, management by exception, active, and management by exception, passive. Overall, transactional leadership is less effective. And the last of the 3 prominent school leadership types is laissez-faire leadership. Laissez-faire leadership is based on trust. This means that leaders leave it up to their followers to complete responsibilities in a way that they choose without direct policies or procedures. Characteristics of laissez-faire leaders include delegate authority, maximize the leadership qualities of their staff, praise accomplishments, reward successes, offer constructive feedback when necessary, allow the staff to solve problems and manage challenges, and know when to step and lead during a crisis. Laissez-faire leaders are believed to be passive avoidant and ineffective type leadership. The first step in attaining an effective school culture is to help educators recognize that having a strong positive culture means much more than safety and order. Strong culture has a sincere and honest relationship among school members in a sense of collaboration. A positive school culture is focused on improving teaching and learning through collaboration to ensure all students achieve at high levels. School culture can be determined by the values, shared beliefs, and behaviors of the various stakeholders within the school's community and reflects the school's social norms. A truly positive school culture is characterized by the presence of a set of norms and values that focuses everyone's attention on what is most important and motivates them to work hard towards a common purpose. School culture is directly impacted by the school leadership, who promotes values, shared beliefs, and behaviors of the various stakeholders within the school community. Shared values or the judgment of people at your school make those beliefs and assumptions, whether they are right or wrong, good or bad, just or unjust, it makes up the school culture. Fundamental belief and assumptions have power to influence school culture. Behavior norms should be established to have a positive influence on the culture. Stakeholder engagement is important to improve school culture. And school culture based on research finds that many communities are uninformed about or disconnected from their local schools. To understand how all stakeholders feel about school culture, the public perception on public schools is important. America, for years, seems to be disturbed by inherent anxieties about the direction of the country, including anxieties about issues concerning our own public school system. Some of the public's chief complaints about the schools reflect the societal themes, such as youngsters graduating without minimal basic skill levels, truant sporting diplomas alongside youngsters who worked hard for their diplomas, educators making jargon-laden announcements of yet another educational fad. All Americans from all walks of life seem to believe and have the same vision for schools, that it must be a safe and orderly place where all children can learn at least the basic skills, and the belief is that schools should not focus on anything else but that. Therefore, the public school, whether right or wrong, are no longer theirs, the public's, and as long as their concerns go unaddressed, then public resistance will stiffen and lead to the abandonment of public schools. However, on the other hand, research indicates that parents have a strong sense of how their children are doing in comparison to other children. So it seems that the abstract perception of public schools have suffered, while satisfaction with actual schools remains fairly consistent with parents. A little bit of statistics. Today, roughly 1/3 of Americans have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in the nation's public school, which is a massive decline from the 70s, when nearly 2/3 expressed such positive views. Meanwhile, nothing appears to have changed for the worse. So based on this profound data, what is causing the unease about public education? Simple. It is the national reform language, like a nation at risk or no child left behind. But the fact is that many schools do not need reforming. Many need attention and investment like our poorest and least advantaged schools. They just need policy addressing issues like school integration and compensatory funding. Ultimately, reformation is not the solution. Our schools need to reset and take responsibility for rendering a high quality education for all students. Americans as a collective must learn how to continue to embrace those that it works for and learn different ways to render high quality education for those that refuse. When a school fails, it is because everyone failed. This study is intended to measure leadership as it relates to the school culture using the school culture triage survey. The survey will illuminate how the teachers and staff believes contribute to the school culture. The school culture is impacted based on the variables, then the culture impacts student achievement, discipline, and attendance. This study will lead to the research on the impact of leadership on school culture that supports the claim that a positive school culture can increase staff morale and retention, student achievement, and stakeholder satisfaction. The study can address why school culture has suffered in certain schools and how the school leadership can be responsible. Which brings me to my research questions. Research question 1, how does school leadership impact the school culture for all stakeholders? Hypothesis, my hypothesis is that school leadership, is positively related to the school culture for all stakeholders. Research question 2, how do teachers and staff beliefs about a positive school culture contribute to the school culture? My hypothesis is when teachers and staff believe that the school culture is positive, then the school culture will reflect positivity. And my last research question, how does a positive school culture impact student academics, discipline, and attendance? Once a positive school culture is established, student academics increase, student discipline decreases, and student attendance increase, is my hypothesis. My methodology, this will be a quantitative study. It is appropriate to satisfy the goal of the study, which is to examine the impact school leadership has on school culture measured by teacher retention, community involvement, and student achievement. The advantages of a quantitative research method are that they draw conclusions for large numbers of people, they employ efficient data analysis, they examine probable cause and effect, they control biases, and people are generally known as numbers. Quantitative research limitations are that it is impersonable. The participants are not heard. Also, there is limited understanding of the context of participants because they are anonymous. This study uses the hierarchical linear modeling, HLM, and stepwise multiple regression. These quantitative methods allows the 3 variables to be justified in each of the 3 leadership types which are professional collaboration, affiliative and collegial relationships, and efficacy or self-determination. Data from the annual school report cards made available by the North Carolina Department of Public Education will be collected to study how leaders impact the school culture for all stakeholders. Wagner's The School Culture Triage Survey is used to evaluate the teacher's variable in this model. This technique is intended to precisely estimate the lower level slopes and the implementation on estimating the higher level outcomes. The lower level would be the teacher level responses from the School Culture Triage Survey, and the higher level would be the school data retained from the school report card to establish the relationship of the variable to school leadership. Using this survey allows the variables to be closely examined in this study. The survey will be distributed to all faculty at the 3 middle schools. There will be approximately 142 total faculty members. The school triage survey was selected because it examines and compares multiple variables at one time, providing adequate testing of the research. The comparative test will include the impact of the following dependent variables on the following independent variables on the following dependent variables. The independent variables are affiliative collegiality and self-determination or efficacy. And then the dependent variable is professional collaboration. The study will be conducted using a 17-item Likert scale. The school triage survey, developed by Wagner, analyzing school culture from the 3 variables. There are 5 items for professional collaboration, 6 items for affiliative collegiality, and 5 items for self-determination or efficacy. The survey will be distributed to the associate superintendent of the school district via email using Google Forms, who will then distribute the survey to the participating middle school administrators. The middle school administrators will forward the survey to their faculty for completion. The survey will be distributed in May, and data collection will be completed by the end of May. A middle school report card data will be collected for all 3 middle schools, grades 6 through 8. Due to COVID, data will be taken from the 2018-2019 school year. Middle School 1 has 645 students with 75% experienced teachers, receiving a performance grade of 53, a D, and not have met academic growth. Middle School 2 has 956 students with 77.2% experienced teachers, receiving a performance grade of a 59, which is a C, and have met academic growth. Middle School 3 has 670 students with a 68.5% experienced teachers and receiving a performance grade of 50, which is a D, academic growth not met. My delimitations. The HLM usually uses large sample sizes. Although the survey will be distributed to approximately 142 faculty members, even if there is a 100% return rate, this is still considered a small sample size. My limitations: only middle schools were chosen to participate in the survey because administrators at the elementary and high school levels did not volunteer to participate. I began my dissertation process as an administrator in the district in one of the middle schools. that I was the administrator. Although I am no longer employed there, my connection may still stand as a limitation. That concludes my presentation. Are there any questions from my dissertation committee?
I have a question, and I think personally you did pretty good with what you actually have done up until this present time. But I do have and this could be something that you can look forward to in the future. I used to work at, before I started at Fayetteville State, I taught a year of high school. And it was in a community that was very underdeveloped. I will say it from that because I'm originally from New Jersey. So you're talking about coming from North New Jersey, then coming to some place where really, to be up in front and honest with you, only had one traffic light. That's how small that town was. And the big thing there was when I spoke to the student, as soon as they graduated, they wanted to go to work at a factory. There was a factory that was there. So that was you was going to be working in the factory or actually working as a teacher, becoming a teacher. Now, my question is this. If you're talking about buy-in, dealing with administration, do you feel or have you come across through research and your reading that those individuals that are homegrown and become principal has a stronger or a better success rate than those that come from outside, say from a place, may not be from that small community, maybe in the same state, but not from that community. So they have to come in and they have what I like to call a honeymoon period. I got to get to know you, you got to get to know me, but they may not be there for long because of the friction. Did you come across any literature on that? Or and again, if not, this could be something that you can actually look forward to.
I think that is a very good question, Dr. Gillespie. I believe that may be something actually to receive a little bit of demographic data from our staff that will be taking the survey, maybe asking a question about how are they natives of the district in my research district, or even talking about the administrator being a native of the. So I think that's a very good question that can be included.
Also I think that would be a great piece of research that will come out. I mean, that would be a great component that could come out in chapter 4, is whether or not that homegrown effect or that personal connection to the community effect. That would be an interesting piece of information.
I mean, I think you did a lot of hard work. I appreciate all you've done and put into this. And you talk a lot about the leadership styles. How are you going to determine what the leadership styles are of the 3 principles and how that's impacting each one of those middle schools? And that may be something that comes out in the survey, but you've tried to identify what, like Betsy's, what her leadership style is, or what Jamie's is in that.
So the focus will be on the questions in the leadership and how the 3 variables are found in those 3 leadership styles. So that's how we'll relate it back to those 3 leadership styles. Don't want to dive too much into chapters 4 and 5, but it will come out that no leader will have one direct leadership style as out of those 3 that were mentioned.
And just as a side note, as far as doing the study in the district, according to our policy, which is 5230, you'll need to make sure that you send Dr. Bryan a letter asking for his approval to do it, to do the study in the district and using the 3 schools. So,
Yes, Hope, and that probably needs to be done right away because that will be a part of the IRB process as well, permission
yes, sir, from the district.
in writing. All right, are there any other additional questions or comments for Hope before we kind of go into a private chat room here and leave Hope to talk with her colleagues? All right, I'm going to try this breakout room thing. Now, I'm an older person, and so these, they don't always work out right, but my intent is for Dr. Waller, Dr. Gillespie and I to go into a breakout room. So I'm going to sign manually.
If we don't see you again, Hope.
Thank you so much, Dr. Waller and Dr. Gillespie and Dr. Stone.
Okay.
You're on mute, Dr. Stone.
All right, I am back. I don't know how to work this, but we are now waiting for Dr. Waller. I hope I didn't. Well, Dr. Gillespie, you got back.
Hopefully she just hit leave breakout room instead of leaving meeting, because I kind of, she might have said I'm leaving the meeting instead of leave breakout room. So you may want to give her a minute or so to come back so she can get on.
I will do
She will
that.
have to come back in. And also I'll remind you when she come back in, hit record. So
I'm already recording. I thought about
okay.
that. I wrote myself a big old note down here. And here she comes.
Yeah.
Dr. Waller, I hope I did not do something to kick you out.
You on mute.
You're on mute, Dr. Waller.
I have no idea how I got out or in, but I'm back. So,
All right, well, it's awesome to see you. And I am recording, and I'm happy to say to you, Hope, that the committee is very comfortable with the direction you're going in and sends you Godspeed. And you and I'll talk a little bit after the meeting, but they were very comfortable, and I'll let them say that as well. So you have crossed this threshold, the IRB, the biggie, the next biggie. And so congratulations, Hope.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
congratulations, congratulations, Hope. Very proud of you. Thank you for all you're doing. So,
Thank you, Dr. Waller. Thank you so much.
you're very welcome. If I can help between now and then, let me know.
Yes,
And-
ma'am.
And Hope, take her up on it because you got to have that letter from the soup immediately for the IRB.
Yes.
All right.
I will
Hope.
include you, Dr. Waller, on that email. And oh gosh, I forgot his secretary's name. Should I include her?
If you just wanted to address it to him and then to write the letter to him, but scan it to my email, then I will give it to him personally.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Hope, anything you want to say before we zoom out?
I appreciate you all again. Thank you for taking the time today, and thank you for being part of my dissertation committee. And I look forward to seeing you all again in the same setting in a couple of months.
All right.
Thanks for
Yes,
including.
ma'am.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank
God
you.
bless Dr. Love.
Not a
Dr.
problem.
Love.
You are welcome.
I called you Dr. Love. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Gillespie.
You're welcome.
Hey, Labette.
Thank you, Dr. G.
Hey, Dr. Stone.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I cannot complain. Now, you ready for this?
I'm trying to get